Welcome back to Organist Launchpad, a series of videos produced by the Royal Canadian College of Organists. My name is Jonathan Oldengarm, and I'm Minister of Music at Metropolitan United Church in Toronto, Ontario. In this segment, we're going to talk about 16th and 17th century Reformation hymnody and how to play it on the organ. We're going to use Old 124th, a Genevan psalm tune, as our example. The early Reformation was a golden age of congregational music, motivated by a burning sense of call to teach the new doctrines, and helped by the rise of the publishing industry and the increase in mass literacy. The reformers, composers, and poets produced an unprecedented number of hymns and psalm paraphrases. Among these are some of the stateliest, most memorable, and elegant hymn melodies ever written that are still in widespread use today. For example, Now Thank We All Our God, or Praise to the Lord the Almighty. These are strong tunes with memorable melodic profiles, and they hold a world of harmonic and contrapuntal possibilities. Think of the wealth of chorale preludes composed by J.S. Bach alone, or all of the amazing chorale settings within the church cantatas or the passions. Not to mention the 19th century programmatic settings of chorale melodies by the likes of Mendelssohn, Brahms, and Liszt. While it is possible, of course, to take many different approaches to playing these tunes, the most natural aesthetic is a quite objective, classical one. We'll consider Genevan Psalm 124, known in the English-speaking world as Old 124th. You can find it at Voices United, number 418. Note that a similar approach will be effective for early Lutheran chorale melodies as well. We're looking at a Renaissance aesthetic, metrically and melodically and modally. It calls for a fairly solid and objective playing style, often quite detached with strong articulation and clear articulation, classical registration colors. There are different approaches that we can take to harmonizing these melodies, of course, and we'll get into how to re-harmonize in a moment. The tradition was to sing these melodies in unison, but throughout the 16th and 17th centuries, increasingly the organ was used for accompanying and leading congregational singing. The original harmonized settings of the Genevan melodies, composed by Claude Goudimel, use only root position chords and some dissonances and suspensions. So if we're going to come up with our own harmonizations, we can take the melody and start with two voices, put the cantus firmus in the right hand and the bass in the left hand, and make sure that your relative interval to the soprano line is always an octave, a fifth, or a third. In that way, you'll be prepared to have a root position harmony. Favor contrary motion so that you have strong contrapuntal lines and that you won't be led into the trap of parallel fifths. For example, let's take the first line of Old 124th. A bass line that will go with that very well in root position chords is and if we elaborate that somewhat, fill it in with the other voices, it's not the harmonization that's in the hymnal, but it's perfectly sound contrapuntally and harmonically. When playing these hymns for congregational use, as I said, a fairly strong, crisp articulation, an incisive approach to rhythm is good. Without elaborating too much on the harmonic language and getting into a lot of diminished chords and secondary dominants that wouldn't be as idiomatic to the language of the melodies, we can do a great deal with moving the cantus firmus into different voices. Using the technique I explained earlier, think about root position chords and think about strong contrapuntal relationships. Avoid parallel fifths, octaves, etc. Aim for a general contrary motion. I'll play 3 verses of this hymn, first with the cantus firmus in the soprano, then with the cantus firmus in the tenor, but using double pedal, and then I'm going to flip things upside down and put the cantus firmus in the bass. Now, in order to put it in the bass, we have to abandon our commitment to root position chords because the voice leading doesn't quite work that way. So we're going to jump from a Renaissance to an early Baroque aesthetic with maybe a little hint of 19th century thrown in. So here we go, Old 124th in 3 different versions. This approach will be quite effective for many Lutheran chorales of the 17th century as well as the Genevan tunes. Really, any of those strong modal melodies will be very well treated in this kind of approach. Thank you for watching this second part of our Protestant hymn playing series. In the next part, we're going to look a little more closely at 19th century melodies, which become a little bit more subjective, a little bit more orchestral. I hope that the tips and tricks that you've seen here and the techniques will be helpful to you and will help you build your skills. Thank you for watching.